Welcome to an all-new edition of Fanlight Zone Presents. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also the editor-in-chief here at FLZ. To my left, you're right at home. He's one of our featured comic editors. And you also know him as the host of 607 TWS, The Wrestling Show. Please give a warm welcome to Rich.
I am back in the saddle again, and it's time to talk to yet another amazing content creator. So I'm always excited.
Yes, because coming to Kickstarter is a story that combines the sweet science with the supernatural in a story that you cannot miss. Because you know this creator from such stories as Outer Darkness and Leviathan, and one half of the dynamic duo behind the Eisner-winning book Chew. So we are super excited to see what he's going to be bringing along with his tag team partner to Ghostbrawler, which is coming to Kickstarter. So please give him a warm welcome to the one and only John Layman. John, what is going on?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Out here on my porch in Phoenix, and in one of the last days before it gets ungodly hot. You know, it's only 100, 102 right now, and I will be praying for these days in a couple weeks.
I say we've been in a cold front here in upstate New York, so trust me, we're excited to get some heat. But going in with this, obviously, you know, seeing what you have coming with Ghostbrawler, how did this whole story come to be?
Well, I had been fooling with the notion of somebody who interacted, someone who's able to interact with ghosts. You know, not the most original concept. You know, you've seen it 100 ways, and I was trying to, like, is this a kid's book? Is this a pirate's book? Is this, you know, what is it? And you know, like Chew, it was a bunch of sort of different ideas floating around that all kind of like came together as one. And I think the pre-press, it's like, well, it's Rocky meets Ghostbusters. Okay, but I'm calling it, what if Raging Bull was a ghost-busting good fella? There is a missing element from the boxer meets ghosts, which is it's heavily Scorsese, heavily, you know, Sopranos. There's a real, like, kind of mob element to it too. It's not just, you know, it's a boxer who's in too deep with the mob, and you know, and then he discovers he gets killed in the ring. He can not only see ghosts, but he can, you know, touch them. So he does what he knows, which is punch things. So he starts a business where he goes to haunted houses and just beats the crap out of ghosts to get them to leave.
Because sometimes you got to strong arm a ghost.
Yeah.
Yep.
That makes it the best. Sometimes you just gotta strong arm a ghost. And speaking of ghosts, when you were doing all this up, you know, getting this all together, how was it like making like something that was based in reality with obviously the boxer, but also in the supernatural with the ghosts?
You know, I think one of the reasons ROB Guillory and I get along so well is like, neither of us are straight genre guys. Like, if you asked me to do a straight boxing book, that would bore me. A straight ghost book would bore me. A straight mafia book would bore me. But you put them all three together. I mean, look at Chew. Chew was, you know, soap opera, science fiction, police procedural, like, you know, and it allows us to, I don't know, keep things fresh and keep ourselves excited, not being tied into one genre.
And especially coming off the heels of Chew, you know, when you're reuniting with Rob for this in the creative process, what do you think has been the biggest change for you both coming back together to the story? Because it's been since 2016 since we saw you work together on Chew.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, Rob's more confident as an artist. He's been writing himself now, you know, doing these Ignition books and Boom books and stuff. And I don't know, I feel like, you know, when Chew was being developed in 2007, you know, I was in my late 30s, and you know, I was scrappy and I had something to prove, and I think I'm a little softer now, and you know, COVID made me appreciate friends, you know, comic book people dying, John Cassaday, Sam Keith, you know, makes me kind of appreciate mortality, and I'm just this is a little bit of a nicer book than Chew. I mean, Chew was funny because everyone was a jerk. This guy, his name's Joey Frazzini. He's just a neighborhood lout, but he's got a good heart. You know, he's the guy who brings home the lost puppy and helps the old lady off the bus. And it's kind of nice to do something kind of Ted Lasso-y. You know, it's feel goody, but, you know, it still gets your, you know, has your action, has, you know, blood, has, you know, all the stuff you expect from Chew, but feel like it's a little nicer around the edges this time.
Like a little bit of a 180. You know, go one aspect of the guy's a jerk, and that's the one not so much. It's always it's nice to see different things.
Yeah.
With that, this is coming out. Ghostbrawler is coming out on Kickstarter. We love Kickstarter as far as what they do for independent comics and such. What would you say is the biggest pro and con of doing this venture through Kickstarter?
Well, it's a hell of a lot of work. I mean, the great thing about Image is, you just make comics and deliver them a comic, and they worry about the printer and solicitation and all this sort of stuff. And like I told you, I think the Kickstarter is being delayed 2 weeks because we're still worrying about print quotes. We're having I didn't get into comics to do math, and we're having to figure out well, how many units, how much do we need to make? We got to pay backer kit, we got to pay this. Shit, this is the last thing I want to do is crunch numbers and do business. I want to have a guy punching ghosts. That's what I want to do.
It's always nice to be on the creative side, and then they leave the numbers to somebody else. I will say that,
especially I think most comic book creators are dumb, and or at least I am. Again, I didn't get into comics to do math or to run a business. I want to escape into 4-color fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I could say the same thing about those of us who get into content creating.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want to do math or any of that stuff. It's can I just make this and put it out? And I've gone over the list of the fun things, and then the hard, I shouldn't say the hard things. I should just say the work.
Yeah.
So the work gets split into the part of the work that's fun, and then the part of the work that's not so fun.
Yeah.
And then you get benefits off of that. But it's still kind of I get it completely, because if you ask me right now, to break down the spreadsheet for what's going on, I'm who needs that?
Yeah,
I'll leave that to the editor in chief.
Yeah,
I would say that the Kickstarter stuff has not been fun at this point, because we're having to and you got people, we've got people advising us, and sell this book for $50, and it's no, we've been arguing about tiers. We need an entry level. Times are tough. You want this isn't a money grab. I don't want to do this to. Let's be honest, it's going to be a lot of Chew fans, and they've already supported me. So, I want to be able to say, look, if you don't have a lot of money, here's the bottom tier. This gets you the book. It's going to be a really cool collectible, and then we raise tiers with bells and whistles and, foil stamps and autographs and tip-in sheets. And, for the whales out there, if you got $500 and you're dying to give it to me, we'll find a way.
Yeah.
But I recognize that's not most people, and I should let you guys know, this is going to be an Image book. Image is our home, but so we're doing what we're calling the Black and Blue Bruiser edition, and it's going to be monotone, kind of like the Marvel or DC black and white and red books. How they just it's like a Wolverine or an Elektra or something where they just use a single color. So when the comic comes out, it's going to be like a full color, like a regular comic book. This is going to be an edition that's just black and blue and and white. But it goes with the boxing theme, and we're not gonna do this for direct market. This is, you're getting in on the ground floor, and this is an exclusive collectible. And what we're doing, we're not going to Tahiti with this. We're taking the money and pouring it into color, making sure Rob keeps his lights on while we work on issues. So we're using the Kickstarter to sort of fund the ongoing series and give us the best launch we can.
That's awesome, though. It does cover a lot of the markets. I've said a million times, the comic book, fandom, there's a lot of collectors in that. That's, some people are, because I've gotten that pushback. There's some people who just love reading comics, which I love reading comics too. But then I also have a collector's portion to it. I love collecting certain things. So that means it's really awesome for people like me who are hey, I get a really cool thing, help support, and get a really cool thing out of it. So that's really cool.
Something that kind of bugs me is here's a kick. I buy a lot of board games on Kickstarter in addition to comics, and I'll pay $75 for this game that I'm really excited about, and I'm helping get it off the ground. And then 6 months later, it's on Amazon for half the price. And it's well, that sucks. And so I'm making it specifically clear that when the book comes, it's going to be a whole different animal than the Bruiser edition, which is Kickstarter only. And I'm not sure you guys have seen any of the monotone pages. I'm not sure they're out in the wild yet, but they're beautiful. And now we're like, Rob, this black and blue thing is really cool. Maybe when it's time for the trade, we'll keep kickstarting Bruiser editions. Like the direct market gets the full color comic, which is what sells at comic book stores anyways, full color. But like for the Kickstarter and the collector crowd, this Bruiser thing might have legs. Like this may not be the last of it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and especially to see that Rob Guillory art, like I say, is just amazing. But especially in that kind of format too, because we're seeing a lot more of that black, white, and red, color mix. We've seen the big two, but to see it in this format too, I think is going to be something. Especially with the supernatural mixed in with it. Like I think that's some area that I think will really pop when readers get it, and especially to have such an easy access to it, because like you touched upon, the market's very tough right now, and especially to come with a book like this. But you and Rob have both made it so easy to access, which I think is so brilliant.
Going back to your question about how did Rob and I like sort of get back together, like first of all, we were never apart. There hasn't been a week in the last 10 years that we haven't at least sent each other a text or something. And a couple of years ago, we've also had a lot of media deals that weren't public. I know you probably heard about a Chew cartoon 10 years ago or a Chew TV show, but there have been at least 3 others that you haven't heard of that, the option came and went. Skybound had us for a while. We were developing a cartoon during COVID for Warner Brothers, didn't get off the ground. And now we have another option, and it's really good. It takes forever. It takes 8 months to negotiate or 6 months, and finally closed. I think it closed in January. And we asked these guys, we're like, hey man, can we get a press release? And they're like, oh, sure. And so we've been saying, oh yeah, TV announcement coming. But it's May. Like Hollywood time is not the same time as we experience. Like when they say soon, God only knows what that means. But we have a major star that nerds love as Tony Chu. We've got a great company with a great track record. And then we've got a showrunner who has done not a super popular show, but a very cool show. So we're in good hands right now. So Rob and I were always going back and forth because of like lawyer shit kind of thing. And then Rob tricked me into this, we're doing like a 1 page a month Chew serialized thing for Comics the Magazine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rob tricked me. He straight out tricked me. And I'm friends with Joe Keating, and I'm friends with Adam Freeman. Like I know the guys behind the magazine, so it's not like he tricked me under duress. But like I thought it was just going to be like a gag. Like the first episode's just like a Hostess Pie parody, and I thought we were just going to do some gags, and then like Chew's back, Chew's coming back, everybody, they're serializing Chew, and I'm like, we are. And then I'm like, shit, well, now I got to. So, we were talking a lot because of the TV thing. We were talking about, because of the serialized Chew thing. And it's our 10th anniversary. And Rob and I had talked about this other book, this like sci-fi thing that I gave to him as the artist. And he was excited, but it didn't feel like Chew. And I could just feel the audience being like, yeah, your old stuff was better. And Rob was doing Mosley and I was doing other stuff, and we just never made it happen. And then the Ghostbrawler, like when I came up with the concept, I'm like, this is a Rob Guillory book. Like this is the book we should be doing, not some weird freaking sci-fi thing that people are like. With Ghostbrawler, we can say, hey, if you liked Chew, you will like this. Not the same thing. But it's in the same spirit. It has the same tone, maybe a little softer, a little more heart. You're going to care about the characters. It's funny, it's exciting, everything you want from a comic book.
Yeah, I'm already sold on this. So like I say, everybody really needs to check this Kickstarter when it comes out, and especially going into the creative side of things. There is a lot of different themes involved with this. Did you find yourself gravitating towards one area of the book? Would you say like the sports side of things or the crime side of things, or just kind of, how to navigate that as putting this all together?
Well, I would probably say the sports side the least, because I'm not a sports guy. Like, I don't care about any sport whatsoever. You know, not to say that I don't like a boxing movie. You know, show me, you know, Creed or Digstown or, you know, a Rocky movie. I will enjoy it. But like, I'm not a sports fanatic. And there was a point where I was talking about the like I had the ref counting down, and they're like, no, the ref counts up, or whatever it is. I was doing it. It's like, wow, that's how little I know about boxing. I'm not a horror guy in that I don't like splatter movies, like, you know, torture porn, you know, Michael Myers, or, you know, slasher. But I love supernatural stuff. You know, I love ghosts. I love, you know, devils, demons, possessions. So, you know, I'm just playing, and I really like Asian horror. There's a lot of Japanese and Korean horror movies I like, and so, you know, I'm playing with different ghost motifs. Like, okay, here we're playing with Amityville horror type of haunted house, and here's, you know, a poltergeist, you know, possession, and here's a grudge, you know, a grudge Asian ghost, you know, with the creepy long hair and the white skin crawling like a spider, with a guy who is a big, dumb, good-hearted boxer who owes money to the mob and keeps getting pulled into, like, either doing favors for the mob boss he owes money, or just doing favors because he's kind of a nice guy, which favors don't pay the bills and they don't pay your mob debt. So yeah, it's fun. You know, I watched a lot of Sopranos in my day. I love me a good Scorsese, you know, mob movie.
I feel like you bringing even up The Sopranos, for some reason in my life, it's really getting there to the point where I need to rewatch The Sopranos again, just because every time I turn around, I'm getting reminded of The Sopranos.
It's always on TikTok now.
Yeah, it's on TikTok. It's for some reason, I think the universe is speaking to me. So when I go home tonight and I start doing things, I think I have to put The Sopranos on.
Yeah, a couple years ago, my kid went to a school that was pretty freaking far. It was like a 35-minute drive each way. And I got to listening to Talking Sopranos, which is Christopher and Bobby the Big Bobby, whatever his name was. But they talk about an episode, and then they'll bring on a guest, like they'll bring on Carmela, or they'll bring on, you know, whoever, and they'll talk about. So I would, you know, listen to that while I drive my kid to school or pick him up, and then I would watch that episode like on my, you know, treadmill or you know, whatever. And you know, it was a good way to pass the time, get some exercise in, and rewatch Sopranos, which still a great show.
Yeah, I mean, I might have to take a page out of there. I might have to do it while I'm exercising or doing it, but I'm telling you, the universe is telling me to watch The Sopranos, so I'm going to have to do that, as well as pick up Ghostbrawler on Kickstarter, like everybody else should. But I will say this: you are, you know, somebody who's synonymous with indie comics, has done amazing work, and with that being said, I feel, and we've talked about on the show, we're big champions, love indie comic books, and I think that right now we're in kind of a nice little boom area for indie comics, is because, let's be honest, every genre you can imagine is now represented in indie comics. We're not just doing, you know, we're not just stuck with this or that. You're getting a little bit of taste of everything. From somebody who is a creator of indie comics and obviously loves them as well, what is your sense of the temp in the room here in 2026 as far as the indie scene goes?
I feel like everything's hot right now. Maybe not Marvel, but I think DC is killing it with the absolute line and even the non-absolute line, and I, you know, it's one of these rising tides things, and just kind of the cyclical nature of Image. Like, Image can't stay on top forever, and it kind of, you know, Image has its entire life kind of ebbed and flowed, and we are definitely on an upswing, and I hope that upswing is still going when, you know, Ghostbrawler starts, you know, proper.
Agree with you 100%. I mean, obviously, like right now, the momentum and the wave of getting new people in with the Absolute Batman in particular. I mean, when we talked to Adam Freeman, he even said that, you know, that is like the generation, the Dogman generation. Now they have their manga-esque character in Absolute Batman and the mainstream, and it really has kind of, you know, reinvigorated people. But now, like I said, it's going across the board because there's so much great stuff out there, whether it's horror, true crime, comedy. We're getting a lot of comedies lately, which I'm big on. Like there's a lot of cool stuff out there. So like, I think it's a perfect time to come up with something that has so many layers like Ghostbrawlers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also the that's the great thing about Image, is Image, you know, Image is not just guys in capes, even though like Radiant Black is fantastic, and, you know, You know, they've got good stuff, but like if you're someone who thinks comics is just, you know, Batman and Superman and X-Men, you know, that's where Chew came in, because Chew was very viral, and people like, oh, you think comics are a bunch of, you know, guys in tights hitting each other? You know, here's a funny book about, you know, food, and a, you know, a funny cannibal in like a, you know, in a weird cartoony style. And Chew had this viral aspect where you would show your, you know, your significant other or your coworker, or you would pass it to people who didn't read comics, to sort of, you know, spread the word and you know, evangelize comics a bit.
In this era too, there's just so much there that a book like Ghostbrawler really is going to be catching fans, because it does have a different feel to it, which I really think it stands out. And I think for a book to really succeed on the Kickstarter level, it's definitely got to need something to hook it, and this definitely does. And especially going into this project, how far have you plotted out this story? Would you?
Oh my God! So I spent the last 2 years working on a Spawn book, the Spawn team book called Scorched, and then I was writing Titans for DC. And coming out of the COVID years, which were really rough for me, I needed the stability of just like 2 monthly paychecks and 2 monthly deadlines. And it was weird. I wasn't working on a lot of creator-owned stuff, and then I got pulled off Scorched and Titans in like rapid succession. And,
Oh, no.
and first I'm thinking, oh shit, I'm not making any money. But the other thing was like not having to worry about, you know, where Starfire was going to be, or She-Spawn or whatever. Like this thing that was in my head was clearly germinating the whole time. So I spent 2.5 months and I wrote the first 5 issues, which that's fast for me. I am not a prolific guy. So to write 2 scripts where I don't have a deadline and an editor saying, where's my script? This is just me on my own. Like I wrote the whole freaking first arc, which answers your question. That's where we're at. And I, like, every time Rob turned around, like Rob's like, oh, I just read 3. It's great. It's like, okay, cool. Here's issue 4. Here's issue 5. Like I have to, because it's not paying me now, I have to stop, and it's like, man, maybe it's time to look for some paying work. You know, get some work for hire gigs while we get this thing off the ground.
Sometimes you just got to do the stuff for the paycheck. I mean, let's be honest. While you get things, but I mean, the cool part about that is it sounds like you had a lot of time to like actually just sit back and like write and make sure that this was the way you wanted it. And it sounds like that's going to really pay off in the final product.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
But I mean, it really was like losing the work for hire, like something, it unleashed something that had been building. And like, I have to say that those 2.5 months, like, it was actually fun. You know, sometimes comics is a job sometimes, and it's not, you know, jobs aren't always fun. And to like have 2.5 months of like, you know, I'm just gonna write this fun, weird thing. And then once Rob got on board, it got even better. It's like, oh shit, we've got our next Chew. You know, we've got our next book, and it's good, and it's perfect for the artist. And Rob, after, you know, he wrote Mosley, he did God, he spent a long time on Farmhand. I mean, Farmhand took as long as Chew, and it was half as long because a lot of bumps in the road, Hollywood, COVID, all this kind of stuff. But also Farmhand got real heavy in the end. You know, really, you know, dark and deep and all this sort of stuff. And Rob was kind of like, in his heart, he knew he needed to do something kind of fun again. And I showed up at the right time. And, you know, we know each other. Like he knows my scripts. He knows what he's going to get from me. He knows we know how to work together well. Like, you know, temperamentally, we're very different. Like Rob's like real cool and mellow and laid back. And I'm, you know, all over the place, and I'm a lot of fun. But like, as coworkers, man, we could not be a better team.
So let's have some fun. Let's do some fun questions here, and the ones that are we always like to say a hot seat because we don't give anybody like the upfronts beforehand. But I know you mentioned a bunch of like ghost stories, if you will, that you took inspiration for while doing Ghostbrawlers. But what would you say your favorite supernatural / ghost story is? Whether it's any kind of media, it could be movie, book, etc.
Well, you know, I don't know if this counts as ghosts, just the vibe of Lovecraft stuff.
Definitely supernatural.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely supernatural, not necessarily ghost. I like The Wailing a lot, which is a Korean movie. I like all the all the iterations of The Grudge and those The Ring, those type movies. And I'm a sucker for possession movies, man. Like Omen, Exorcist, but I think I like The Omen's not a possession movie. It's more like the kid is the devil. But those are the movies that I like the most. And honestly, these Conjuring movies that have been coming out lately, the James Wan kind of horror, I like that they're American, they're very Hollywood, but man, I'll watch every single one of them. And that's the whole universe. The Nun, Annabelle, like all of those Conjuring verse movies, I get a big kick out of. I don't think they're the best movies ever made. And if you want to talk about the best horror movie, probably The Shining. And I really like Dr. Sleep too. But I'm all over the place. I just don't like torture porn.
Gotcha.
People killing people with chainsaws and killing teenagers having sex just does nothing for me.
Yeah. No, I'm more or less psychological horror stuff too. So like anything like that, like Seven, I always think is like a brilliant movie. Because of how it plays out like that. So going back on the horror subject though, because we were talking a little bit about the boom of horror comics right now. What is a horror comic you would recommend to someone if you wanted to get them into the genre?
Outer Darkness.
Well played.
You can't go wrong with Something's Killing the Children. Something's Killing the Children right now.
Yep.
I mean, it's red freaking hot, and James Tynion needs another truckload of money. But it's a great book, and he's also a great dude. I'm very happy with all the success of that book.
I always love the slow burn drama. Like I think he does it better than everybody. Like just how he's been setting that up.
Yeah, I mean, Department of Truth isn't horror, but like same. There are certain writers, James Tynion, one of them, that you're always going to get good stuff from. Yeah, the Nice House on the Lake.
Mm-hmm.
That's arguably horror. I mean, that's also, it's more, kind of sci-fi and psychological horror, but, it's definitely, a little bit unsettling in its premise.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting read. Like I say, I enjoy it, but yeah, there's so much going on with that book.
Yeah. No, you can't read it on the can. Some books you can. Sometimes you gotta like actually think and like, all right, I got to remember who this character is and relationships and stuff like that.
Yeah, when I have to break it down for reviews, yeah, no, it takes me a while because it's a lot to process in all the best ways possible. But yeah, there's just so much like moving parts to say the least, like with that book. But it's a fantastic read.
But I did have to like when the marketing people were talking about Ghostbrawler initially, they're like playing it up as a horror. I'm like, no. Listen, guys, this isn't real horror. This is horror in the way that Ghostbusters were horror or Gremlins or, yes, it's got nods to, like your favorite horror movies, but we're not here to scare you. It's mostly a comedy, an action comedy and, soap opera about this guy's life.
I'm a fan of all the different genres going on, and like comedy right now in comics to me is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always a good thing.
Something I learned from Chew is, your book, your lead character is only as good as the supporting cast. So I went in and like really filled in the supporting cast, and everyone, the supporting cast is great. Like everyone's going to have a lot of fun with it. Joey lives with his mother, who happens to be dead, and he's like, Ma, you're smelling up the house. The neighbors are complaining. And she's like, oh no, you're not burying me. Like the old lady who doesn't want to go, the old parent who doesn't want to go to the old folks home. she doesn't want to be, buried until he gives her grandkids. So she's kind of like the stereotypical like Italian Jewish mother who's like kind of harping on him. And as big as he is, he just can't stand up to this little woman who's actually a desiccated corpse, sitting in her lazy boy. So every character is kind of like, we'll give you a chuckle, when I explain their predicament.
And knowing that you're not a sports guy, but you do seem to enjoy some sports movies, what is your favorite sports movie?
Tin Cup.
Nice.
Good one.
Yeah, I love Tin Cup. I can watch it a million times. But yeah, I like all the Rocky movies, and I like the new ones. The Michael B. Jordan, the Creed movies.
Mhm.
I think have been excellent. Like the classic Hoosiers, Field of Dreams. You don't have to be a sports person to sort of appreciate a good sports movie.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, as long as it has a great story behind it, you can definitely connect with the character because, like, how they overcome the odds in most cases. Whether it's the game or whatever the case is, there's always something there that just really hooks the audience, even if you're not a diehard sports fan.
Yeah, and I think especially in boxing movies, it comes down to heart.
Yep.
Whether the boxer wins or loses at the end, and that's a good way to keep this character focused and likable. I mean, he's got a lot of heart. That's what made him, good in the boxing ring, and that's what makes him good at his job, because he goes to fight ghosts. Maybe this ghost isn't evil. Maybe he ends up helping this ghost. So every case is it's not going to be an issue of just him punching a ghost every single episode. There's going to be that was the initial worry about Chew. They're like, oh, Tony Chew's just going to eat a different body part every issue.
Yeah.
No, that's just a jumping on point.
It's something with Joey that we're going to be really excited to see when he gets his story taken off. And I think our final question is, waiver or legal fees, whatever the case is, wipe away. If you could cross over Joey, whether it's a boxing match or just a story with any other character out in the pop culture universe, who would it be and why?
Oh shit! So you want me to actually give you a spoiler, don't you?
Well, no, I mean, no, I don't want any spoilers, but
because I am crossing him over. He's Ghostbrawler 6, 7, and possibly 6, 7, and 8. After the first arc, we're going to cross over with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the reason for that is A, we've got a pretty fun story, but B, practically speaking, the trade is just going to come out, and we're going to be launching. The trade audience could be a completely different audience than floppies, and like going into the second arc, that's where you want to see the sales stay steady, not get the standard attrition. So especially if the TV deal is actually like public by then and people are talking about Chew again, like, oh wow, I haven't checked out Ghostbrawler, but they're crossing over with Chew. Oh, and the first trade's out and a new arc's about to start. Ooh, yeah, I'll check out this. Basically, we're going to use it as a gateway drug for the people who kind of slept on Ghostbrawler. But yeah, the second arc, which will not be a full arc, is going to be a crossover with you.
And all of that, and he said he wasn't a math guy.
Yeah,
that is marketing 101. It's great.
Yeah, but I'm not having to do any addition other than hopefully adding dollar signs.
I like it.
Yeah, I think you're definitely going to be adding some dollar signs with this, because everything that we've seen thus far about this story is a win. Like, the characters jump out, the artwork, by Rob is fantastic. The story setup is like, it's an instant hook, and I can't wait to see where this goes. Like, this just has so much going on with it, and it feels like an instant win. And we can't recommend this enough for the audience when it comes out on Kickstarter. So whether you're watching this in the podcast form or you're watching this on the YouTube, make sure you click on the link to the liner notes. We'll have it up. If it's not out by the time this episode drops, trust me, we'll put it up, and you just hit us up on fanlightzone.com. We'll personally get this to you, because we really think this is going to be something absolutely special that you don't want to miss.
I appreciate that.
No,
I got to tell you one more thing. You're talking to the king of weird crossovers right now. Like, I've written Army of Darkness versus Marvel Zombies. I've written Red Sonja versus Mars Attacks. I've done Judge Dredd versus Predator versus Aliens. And I'm also writing this Rocketeer story based on a Dave Stevens thing, where he goes based on a Dave Stevens idea where he goes to an island and meets a King Kong-like ape. But King Kong has fallen into the public domain, the novelization of the movie. So this Rocketeer series I'm writing right now has King Kong in it. And I said to IDW, if as long as we're using Kong, can I use some other era-appropriate public domain characters? And they're like, yeah, who? And so I've got Popeye and Tintin in there. So, I'm writing a crossover between Rocketeer, Kong, Popeye, and Tintin. So you know, weird crossovers are in my lifeblood, and every time I make a book, I think of some way as like, where does this fit in the universe that's in my head, and how do I connect it? So I told Rob, I'm like, look, man, here's my idea for Chew Ghostbrawler, and he's like, right on, let's do it.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because I've actually, for FanlightZone.com, I've actually been reviewing the Rocketeer at the Island. So it's been, and the first, it was funny because the first time I picked it up and read it, I was like, wait a minute, that's Popeye. That's
Yep.
Tintin. Like it was like this wild, like I'm just like blown away. Like as I keep going, I'm like, what else am I going to find? It's fantastic. If you're not reading it, you should be reading it. It's a fantastic book.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, weird crossovers, man. Give them to me. I'm your guy.
As long as you can get them in a great story and like your work speaks for itself, like you know you're gonna get something fun here. And like I say, the more weirder the better, because I feel it just we're in such an era that like anything could happen. When you see all this stuff with Marvel and DC working together on their books, it's like the door is wide open, and especially see Ghostbrawler, you know, get into, you know, a tournament, you know, maybe a la DC KO style, you know, that would be something to kind of see how Joey would fare.
Yeah, you know, you're getting closer to the second arc.
Oh.
See,
you're going to give it away by the end of this guide. You're just somehow spoil something you didn't even supposed to know about.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know little other than I know there's a fantastic creative team behind this.
You got good instincts.
Yeah, I mean, I thank you for the compliment. But yeah, because I had literally nothing on this, but that's how you could just tell. Go buy this book if you could. If I'm sensing this is going to be something you want to have in your collection. There's no question in my mind about it. I know Rich is excited about it. Our whole Fanlight Zone team is absolutely excited about this. John, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We definitely have to catch up after the first arc and see where we're going with Ghost.
Hey, I'll come back anytime, and I will drag Rob along next time.
Excellent. We are here for that. All right. On behalf of Rich and myself, thank you again for checking out another episode of Fanlight Zone Presents. We'll see you next time.